In this episode, we talk about the Jack Eichel trade and rebuilding the Buffalo Sabres and the Arizona Coyotes. We go right into how excited the new Golden Knight is and how Sabres Nation is moving on. We dive deep into the deep end to see what the Coyotes' future looks like from their plans, players, and prospects. That was hard to say, as well as their new arena will be. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey. I'm your host, Peter Bojaranov, and the mic is always on. It's your one-stop weekly shop for expert analysis on every single team. We are a fun hockey community, bringing everyone together. You can find me on Twitter now at pbojaranov, Bojarinov. V as in Victor, formerly at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. That's Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag at Jablam Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on those three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with 3 hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, www.jablamsports.com, for our podcasts and even game notes for each episode. You'll get all the links to everything we mentioned on this show, including guests. We've even got articles this year and much more content weekly. For our podcasts, click on podcasts on our website and then hockey on this show specifically, right on our website. It's time for Trending Now. Joining me to discuss what's trending now, and of course, it's Jack Eichel trade. First off, Willie Ramirez, he's from the Associated Press in Las Vegas covering the Golden Knights. He's hurrying up and going to the game tonight. You can find Willie on Twitter at Willie G Ramirez. Welcome to the show, Willie.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
As well on the show is David Morassutti. He writes for the NHLPA and Sportsnet. You can get him on the tweets at D_Morassutti. David, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And, of course, my pal, Joe Yerdon. Joe, where can they reach you? Where do they find all your amazing writing?
You can find me at Noted Hockey on Substack, taking care of my business over there. So check out my reading there, also on Twitter at Joe Yerdon.
There we go. All right, let's jump into it. Big trade, we all know. Eichel going to Vegas. Willie's going to go watch him soon, maybe in a couple of months, but they've got him. It's trending everywhere. Vegas Golden Knights acquired Jack Eichel from the Buffalo Sabres for a third round pick for, of course, Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, a first round pick, and a second round pick. Wow, the thing I have a problem with is there's no first line potential player, in my opinion. You're getting second line potential guys, right, Joe? So is it the sum of all parts that make it better, or is it fair for what Adams got for where he was stuck in that position?
I think it's a good return for what he was seeking. You know, he wanted 4 first round quality parts to the trade if he was going to trade Jack. And, you know, Alex Tuch, his was a first round pick, is a very solid player. Peyton Krebs is a top prospect, taken the same draft as Dylan Cousins. They get another first round pick and then a second round pick. So I think he had to come off of what his desires were a little bit, just because, you know, Jack's got to get neck surgery. That's a big deal. So he had to come off it a little bit, but I think this turned out to be as good a deal as he was going to get.
How excited is Jack Eichel, Willie? We saw from the tweets, both from himself and the team, that it seems like he's ecstatic. We saw even the interview with Gary Lawless and them, that he likes the culture of the team. Ouch, Buffalo. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that it's a knock on Buffalo. We've heard that from every single player that has been traded here, from uh, Max Pacioretty's arrival to when Stastny got here, to Mark Stone. Everybody that's been traded, when Ryan Reeves came, right, toward the middle of the first season. Everybody that's gotten here, it's not a knock on where they were. It's more so on the warmth and the brotherhood and the somewhat the camaraderie and the chemistry that's in that locker room. Now, from a reporter standpoint, we don't know what that's like because we have not been in that locker. The last time that reporters were allowed at the practice facility in the locker room, keep this in perspective, Gerard Gallant Peter DeBoer had just replaced Gerard Gallant. He came back, coached, and then we hit the pandemic. So it's been that long since we've had a chance to vibe in that locker room and understand how it's flowing. It's a completely different team. It's a new era. But I think the idea of what that Golden Knights locker room is all about and what it's always been, even though there's only 6 guys left from that original misfit team, is what makes things exciting. I think more than anything, what I got from Jack Eichel's introductory news conference yesterday was that he is more or less relieved that he is going to have the procedure that he wants, that he has the support 100% of the team from top to bottom, president on down, and that he's going to get back on the ice. The only thing, and he said, I don't think that he's going to come out and knock Buffalo or the organization now that it's a done deal. But the only thing that he really said was that it is frustrating that this could have all been resolved and he could be playing right now. And now he just has to wait. So timetable, 3 months is what he's been told, post-Olympics, back in time for the close of the season, and help the Golden Knights make a run into the postseason.
This is a great perspective on that, and I want to get more on this. David, how do you think involved the NHLPA was in the process of the Eichel trade at all, or do you know at all?
Well, I don't know if there was any specifics, but we do know that there was potential for a grievance to come forward because there was a standstill right now. The team wasn't willing to budge on their stance with the surgery. The player was running out of time to get that surgery if he wanted to come back this season.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was talk that, potentially getting a grievance involved. And for Buffalo's sake, you don't want to have to go through that because it's a lengthy process and one that puts the organization in a pretty bad spot. So I think that maybe helped push things along a little bit more. And Buffalo essentially now gets themselves out of that situation, and Vegas ends up with a good player.
There was a big divide, of course, between the organization and Jack Eichel and his agent. He wanted the procedure that's never been done in the NHL. But of course, he reached out to Weidman from the UFC and from other guys from other leagues that have obviously his now preferred artificial disc replacement he's going to be getting. What do you see now in the future? Because we've never seen this where an NHL superstar no doubt wants something and he's not able to because the organization doesn't want. Are we going to be seeing some different changes in the next bargaining agreement or the next time this happens with another organization?
I think so. I think when you look at the fact that this is players' careers, this is something that's important for their body. Players have taking a real stance on things about their body and their recovery and how, they're very finicky about their routines and everything. We'll see a bit of pushback, but at the same time, NHL teams, they have an asset to protect. They have to make sure that they're doing what's best for the organization as well. Of course, that also involves making sure your best players are taken care of and are happy to be there. And I think this situation shows that the last thing you want is a star player like Jack Eichel to not be happy about the situation. And that's probably the worst part about this. But I think the good part to come out of it is, now more players, I think, can understand what's the right way to go about it and maybe some changes that they need to make going forward.
All right, Willie, before you leave, I want to get a little bit Golden Knights, how the lineup and everything's going to shake here. We know right now, and everybody's like, ooh, the Golden Knights are struggling right now. But with all that firepower on the shelf, how can they somewhat stay in the hunt with Stone, Pacioretty, Karlsson, and of course now Jack Eichel on the IR?
Well, I think it starts with defense and the fact that you have some top blue liners, in terms of Pietrangelo, in terms of Shea Theodore. You have guys, Braden McNabb, that know the system. White Cloud will be, when he returns. These guys have gone through some really odd injuries, not odd where they're unusual, but odd in that some of them with the same thing, broken foot on random freak accidents, either in practice or at the game, trying to block a shot, get hit by a puck. So I think it starts at the blue line, and I think we all know that Peter DeBoer is very headstrong with his. We saw it in San Jose with Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson, getting the blue liners involved to create the offense. William Karlsson did that well in terms of on the back check and getting the team in transition. As long as his blue liners are doing their job, Robin Lehner is making plays, and they can move the puck in transition. I'm not saying that anybody can play forward, but a team that plays and focuses and concentrates on the defensive end and gets it going and gets it going in transition and can move out of the neutral zone, quality forwards can make things happen. It's just going to mean that the Golden Knights are going to be that much better when Stone returns, when Pacioretty returns, when Eichel centers that line. Chandler Stevenson has a Stanley Cup pedigree. Let's not forget that. So what I'm more interested in is what's going to happen to the original misfit line when this team is full strength. Because if Eichel steps in between Stone and Pacioretty, Stevenson, I don't think will drop to the third line. I think he could drop to the line with Riley Smith and Marchessault, putting William Karlsson on the third line. Now, all of a sudden, you have a guy who was one of the scoring leaders in that original Golden Knights lineup that went to the Stanley Cup, centering your third line. And then all of a sudden, this offense is so dynamic. We saw a couple of years ago the St. Louis Blues in last place of the entire NHL in January, and Bennington steps in between the pipes, and they make a run to the Stanley Cup. There is no reason that to not think that the Golden Knights can't play 500 hockey or a little bit better, stay in the top 3 or 4 in the Pacific, and then as they get healthy, chip away at that lead, and full strength after the Olympics, make a late run. It's going to start, though, right now with those top defenders and Lehner, and just moving the puck in transition. And as I said, getting talented forwards that they still have, being able to move. One thing I want to point out is when people are saying, well, they're going to have to give up. I was one of the ones saying, who are they going to have to give up? Where's the money going to come from? Let's not forget that they gave up Alex Tuch, who was going to be on the shelf for quite some time anyway. Peyton Krebs, he matured nicely. He was a great contribution. But so it's more so what's going to take place. If I asked him this, I was one that happened to ask him, hey, some say this is an expensive and risky investment. Do you think you are one? And this goes back to your first question in terms of, what they got in exchange. And he felt that he wasn't. He said he wishes that all the people that criticized him for wanting to do this did the research that he did. And I think it makes sense that a guy with his talent at his age with so much left on the shelf for his career, do you think that his handlers and the medical team around him, around this top 5 NHL centerman, are going to steer him in the wrong direction? I don't think so. So anyway, to answer your question, I think it starts with the defense. I think it starts with leaders in that locker room, encouraging those young forwards, guys like Alex Pietrangelo, who have been there before, who have captained the Stanley Cup championship, guys like Robin Lehner, who has really strengthened the mental aspect of that locker room because he's been so outspoken since arriving here. And I think it all comes together as guys get healthy. And then all of a sudden in February, we're going to look up. They're going to have that Olympic break, and then look out, because Vegas is going to be ready to roll. And it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be fun to cover.
You touched base on a couple things I wanted to ask, but specifically, again, in the future, if they're all healthy, what will happen to the two things that I kind of want to touch base on more further? You mentioned the misfit line, or some of them call it the conscience line, that's been there forever. Marchessault, Karlsson, Smith. And of course, we've seen DeBoer say that's the identity of the franchise is them and their chemistry. It's hard to replace. So are they going to break up that line? And who's going to play with patches? Is it Eichel? Is it Stone? Do you put them all together?
I can't imagine that you wouldn't. When you have guys like Stone and Pacioretty are your top line wingers. You bring in a guy like Eichel for a reason. You didn't bring him in to not be on the top line. What wing are you going to put on the top line? You're not replacing Stone and Pacioretty. So I think it's a gimme what that top line is going to look like. The question is, where does Chandler Stevenson go? Does he center the second line, or do you just drop him all the way? I don't think you go wrong either way in terms of Karlsson to the third line. The hitch is Karlsson's on the shelf right now, and DeBoer is doing some crafty legwork here and patchwork with the lines in moving around, moving parts to get people accustomed to one another. And right now, Marchessault and Smith are they're your top wingers with Stone and Pacioretty on the shelf. Well, who are you going to put with them? If they develop a chemistry with Stevenson, I think it only makes sense that if you see them come together, when Karlsson comes back, he works with the third line. Whether or not I'm not a hockey coach. I've been covering hockey for 4.5 years now. So I've been a sports reporter for 30 plus, but I'm in my 5th year of covering the NHL. So I certainly can't name it, but I can only use common sense. And that tells me that you brought this guy in for one reason. That's to win a Stanley Cup. You put him on the top line with your top wings. Chandler Stevenson's now going to be working likely with, as I said, doing that patchwork in and out of games, making adjustments. If he skates with Marchessault and Smith at the time, I think they build chemistry. Karlsson comes back. He's not going to look at, when you have that wealth of talent, you don't necessarily look at it like, oh man, I'm a third line center. He's still a top 6 forward playing on the third line because you've got this depth. And Karlsson, from what I've gotten to know and covering him since day one, he's a level-headed guy. He just wants to win.
Well, Willie, if you got to go, you got to go. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Joe, with the Sabres, I feel bad for them because we saw, and people are already tweeting, you had these guys, and what did you do with them? Can the Buffalo Sabres keep top talent, or why won't they stay or come to Buffalo, i.e. Ryan O'Reilly, but of course, more recently, Jack Ristolainen, Reinhart.
It's a weird spot that they've kind of put themselves in with this because, they traded for O'Reilly. O'Reilly really liked playing here. He really loved the area. He loved everything about playing in Buffalo, and he seemed to get punished for talking about how much losing stunk, and they sent him out of town. Yeah. And in this case, I think in Reinhardt's case, they traded him because they knew his contract was coming up. They knew it was going to be a UFA thing, and if you can't get him locked up, then he's going to walk. Like there's no way to get around that. And Sam kind of made it clear when in his first time talking with the Panthers that he was kind of waiting around to see if he was ready for a long-term deal to be offered to him. But the couple of times that he came up on his RFA his free agency, one never came. Jason Botterill gave him a bridge deal. Then 2 years later, it's again time for a decision whether you go bridge, you trade him, or you go long term. And Kevyn Adams decided, granted this is during the pandemic, so the money was tight for everybody. So I understand not wanting to go trying to hammer out a long term deal in that case, but I don't think Kevyn Adams expected Reinhart to have a shortened season tally where he was on a pace to score 35, 40 goals either. So that's disappointing. In Eichel's case, the whole, as it came out afterwards, and Jack doing his media scramble afterwards, he said that when they approached him, I believe it was Kevyn Adams, the Sabres approached him and said, like, listen, after the 2019-20 season, they said, listen, we're thinking about kind of re-kickstarting this whole rebuild. Are you interested in sticking around? And Jack was just like, no, man, like it's been 6 years. We haven't even sniffed the playoffs. How can we do a rebuild already? So, I don't blame him for wanting to get out of that situation one bit, because the Sabres have kind of putzed around with everything during his time there. So, the injury stuff is unfortunate. The high ankle sprain, the neck thing now, it's very unfortunate. But as far as being able to keep guys here or bring guys in, I think it's going to be a bigger problem now. Kind of going to battle with your best player over how to best treat his neck or how to treat an injury, just flat out, and preventing him from being able to get ready faster, to get operated on, and essentially delaying his season until February or March now. Like, that doesn't look so great to me. If management is going to step in and say, hey, listen, we don't agree with what you want to get done here, you better do what we say or else. Like, I don't know that anybody wants to go work for somebody that's gonna act that way. So it's gonna be a little bit trickier for him. And I think it's gonna take Kevyn Adams to be a real good salesman and a real good pitchman to say, listen, that was a 1 in a million sort of situation. We're doing things right here. Look at how we're setting things up, and try to build off that to make a case. I mean, this isn't, I think back to that summer of 2020 when they signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year deal. And to me, that was them trying to tell Jack, like, hey, look, we're trying, look, we're going to win a Stanley Cup with you and Taylor. Like, you really wanted Taylor before, right? Like, please stay. Like, it just didn't work out that way. So if you throw enough money around, you can always get the guys that you want. But I think Buffalo has done that enough since Terry Pegula's taken over to know that that's probably not the right way to do things.
You can see myself. I'm decked out in all Sabres gear.
Yep.
I am from the GTA, Greater Toronto Area. Even within our market, there's a big Sabres fan base in here. And I can feel how hard, obviously growing up a Leafs fan, but with the Sabres as well, they just want winning. They're diehard fans, and they want it so bad. Yep. And I think it's a little difficult for Kevyn Adams with the cards that he's been dealt with being the GM as for the Sabres. Oh, man. How do now the Sabres fans feel being let down again, especially now with all that potential being gone? And wasted.
I think it's a different tone now, because I think the Eichel stuff dragged out so long that fans were just begging for it to get over with. Just trade him already. Just like get it done. Like, you can't, you took this long enough to pull the Band-Aid off that now it's just kind of like, this stinks. Just please just rip it off. Let's move on. Let's get on with it. Now focus has changed to how well is Dylan Cousins going to do? Can they fix up what's going on, whatever's going on with Rasmus Dahlin? Can they get him back to a place where he looked like he in his rookie season, with Peyton Krebs and Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka in Rochester. Quinn and Peterka have had a great start to their season. Adding Krebs to that, they haven't yet thrown them all three together on a line to stay, but you got to think that's going to happen at some point, because that could be an entire line that you have in the NHL at some point too. And that's when people start getting to think about what happened after the lockout in 2004, 4-5 lockout, where they came back, and Pominville and Vanek and those guys came right up from Rochester, and Derek Roy, suddenly they had a whole line of guys that had a lot of success in the AHL, join the NHL, and then have immediate success here. So I don't know if it's necessarily trying to recreate old magic or just trying to do things the right way. But if it works out that way, that'll be really good. And I think Sabres fans are so eager to see a winner, but they're at the very much at the point now where it's like, we've put enough hope into this. Prove it. Like, show us that you're gonna get this done, that you're gonna be able to put a winner on the ice, and then we'll be back with a Führer. Like, they're gonna be back like crazy, because they always do. Like, fans always come back, but Sabres fans have wised up now. Like, the cost is really high to go to hockey games. We know that. In the past, it didn't bother them, but like now it's like, listen, you got to put something on the ice that we care about here. Like, make it worth our while. And that's savvy fandom as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. This is a team that was selling out games in 13-14 and 14-15 when they were very much in the tank for getting the top guys in the draft those years. So they've been patient. Fans have been really patient, but now I think they've earned the time to say, like, you got to show us that you mean it.
And we hope they do. Again, you can find them on Twitter for Joe at Joe Yerdon, for David at D_Morassutti, and for Willie, of course, at Willie G Ramirez. In our next segment, we're going to delve deep into another team that's having a lot of issues. The Arizona Coyotes with José M. Romero and Patrick Brown. But have they found a goalie that can finally win some games? We'll find out shortly. Have you ever wanted a one-stop weekly shop for expert analysis on every single NHL team? Look no further than jablamsports.com. We've had guests from James Sapolsky, Ardo Cal, and yes, even Dennis Bernstein shows up monthly. We are a fun hockey community bringing everyone together. Find us wherever you get your podcast and type in JABLAM Sports. That's Jablam Sports. Our website is, yes, you've called it, jablamsports.com. Go download and subscribe right now. You can also find us on socials at Jablam Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm Peter Wojernov saying, puck you later. Now to this week's Team ISO. We are going to delve deep into their savior between the pipes and more for the Arizona Coyotes. On the panel to discuss our Patrick Brown. He's the staff writer for The Hockey Writer. You can follow him on the Twitter at PBrownHockey. And my pal, José M. Romero. He covers the Coyotes for AZ Central Sports. You can get him on Twitter at Romero Jose M. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks so much.
All right. So, man, the Coyotes are not doing too well, but after last game on the weekend, an exciting win back and forth. I was keeping my eye on it versus the expansion Seattle Kraken. And the Superman sweeps in to save the day, and that is Scott Wedgwood. Wow. Phenomenal. Jose, are you guys thrilled to find this guy on the waivers?
Well, I think it's just such a great story. I mean, you have to start with the fact that he broke that 11-game losing streak they had in 2017, 2018 to start the season. So, how in the world did all the cosmic forces come together to bring this guy back who broke that streak back because they need the depth in goal with Carter Hutton injured and Karel Vejmelka not ready. He looks ready, but you still have to keep in mind that he's really inexperienced, and you need to have that second guy, a quality guy who can take up some of those games to allow him to kind of ease into to transition better into the role. So getting Scott Wedgwood and then him coming up the way he did in that first appearance, getting thrown right into it 59 seconds into the game. I mean, what more could you ask for? Look, they needed something. They needed somebody or something to pick them up. And Scott Wedgwood provided just that and got them a really, really much needed win, because you could see it was wearing on Andre Tourigny, all the losses. So that was big time, and a good crowd there that night.
Mm-hmm.
And everything worked out, the way they wanted it to. You got to send a message to those expansion teams and tell them that, hey, you're not coming into our house and getting a W, especially when they need one that bad. So good for them.
Yeah, there's been lots of changes in the last year with the team. Oh man, in the offseason, of course, the Coyotes dropped the bomb, trading their captain, OEL, and Connor Garland to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, Antoine Roussel, first-round pick in the 2021 draft, second-round pick in the 2022, and a seventh round as well in the past draft. First off, why was it the right time for management to move on from their staple, long-term, steady blue liner and leader in OEL, Patrick?
Well, I'd say one, because of the return they could get. They weren't going to be a contender this year, no matter what. And facing, the sanctions, if you will, they didn't have a first rounder. And they were able to get a first rounder as part of that deal for the 2021 entry draft. And ultimately that turned into Dylan Guenther, who, oddly enough, it's funny we're talking about him because I just wrote a piece about him today. He's doing Dylan Guenther things in Edmonton with the Oil Kings, and between him and Costa, that team is a lot of fun to watch. And it was all about the return. The Coyotes were hurting on assets. They're coming in. They didn't have a first round draft pick. And not only do they get one number 9 overall this year, but you look at next year, 3 in the first round, 5 in the second round. Even if they tank and the lottery doesn't go their way, they've got an opportunity with all the assets they have to maybe make a deal if they need to, if they want to get in the Shane Wright sweepstakes, things like that. So I think it was time to move on. OEL was still very, very serviceable, obviously, Garland goes without saying. And they were able to sell really, really high.
So the returns haven't looked as great so far. We can see their statistics. I'm like, wow, it's not looking good for them. I guess it's just, at least it's 1 year, right, Jose?
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't add those guys, to fit them into your plans long term. And I think those guys had to have understood that from Vancouver. So. What you're getting there is in Roussel is you're getting a scrapper. You're getting the guy who's, obviously he's shown he's not afraid to drop the gloves and at least make something happen when they need a little spark of energy, which they've needed a lot. And in Eriksson, you're getting a good leader, a guy with a pretty established track record in the NHL as a player. And then obviously the assets. Dylan Guenther, just – what can you say? You look on Twitter every night and he seems like he's doing something big up in Edmonton with the Oil Kings. So, you have to, as a fan, if you're a fan, you got to look at that and say, look, this kid's coming. And when he's ready, he's going to be great, or you'd like to think he's going to be great. And you just have to you take it on the chin for a year and the rebuild begins in earnest. I think everybody was clear on that plan. You can't bring in these guys from other teams, these veterans from other teams, take on these contracts without telling them ahead of time, here's the deal, guys. You're a rent-a-player for a year. And, maybe it's a long shot if you're going to be around for longer, but, everybody comes on board with the plan here. And if you're not, then, you might not have a job in the NHL.
All right, you're pushing me. I'm getting to it. Take your time, breathe. All right, so obviously I'm going to follow up on both things. The direction the team is going to move into with Bill Armstrong and everything. And as well, you're pushing me there. Edmonton Oil Kings, Casa, Guenther. We're going to get Patrick's piece. We're going to put it on our website, Game Notes. I believe this is episode 6 of season 7. So check it out on JablamSports.com. Patrick, what are these kids developing? How are their skill sets growing so far in Edmonton?
Well, Guenther has been a standout for years in Edmonton. Rookie of the Year 2 seasons ago, I believe, 59 points in 58 games. And then in a shortened season, in 12 games, he had 28 points or 24 points the following year. So he's been showing it for a while. And what I think is really cool about Guenther, and Jose saw it firsthand as well this summer, he didn't miss a beat coming in and playing in rookie development camp, in the rookie face-off tourney, and then ultimately in the NHL preseason, where, he racked up 2 points in 2 games, a goal and an assist before heading back to Edmonton. So I think everybody's really excited about the kid. Hands down, it's the right move to have him there in Edmonton with, the ability to develop, the ability to not mess up his psyche on a 1-10-1 team, and give him the time that he needs on a really good team to be able to develop. So I think everybody has every reason in the world to be excited about him. And what's even more exciting is the pieces that Armstrong may be able to put together in this upcoming draft, with so many selections, so many options. You're going to be able to get some ammunition, some reinforcements, if you will, rather quickly. And even if they hit on half of their first 2 rounds, they're going to be in really good shape in the future.
All right, let's get to the management side of things here. You know what? On the back end, before we get to that too, with the more of the struggles, I kind of wanted to mention one little thing is on the back end, they have Jakob Chychrun. He's supposed to be a bit of more of a leader now, but he's only got a single assist and is also a -20. First off, what's going on with him?
If that's for me, and Jose, I'll toss it over to you too, but he's getting everybody's top pairing every night. I'd say that's number one right out of the gate. He's the guy. And this is, we talked about OEL earlier, right? And this is the first year that he's been the guy. And also, not that this is maybe saying a whole lot, but this is the worst team he's been on, the worst NHL team he's been on as well. And there's something to be said for that. So Jose, I didn't mean to talk over you, so I'll toss it over to you, but that's my opinion. He's getting everybody's best shot every night. And he just picked up that assist against Seattle. It was good to see him get on the board.
Yeah.
No problem. For me, I just think, it's a lack of, it's, I guess what we call it, puck luck or lack of puck luck. He's getting his shots. He leads the team in minutes. He's playing a ton. He's getting shots. He's taking, 4, 5, 6 a night. A lot of them just aren't getting through. And it's at least the effort and the attempts are there. At some point, it's going to happen. I think, Patrick made a great point, made great points there. And also he just, it's a different system. They're asking him to do a little bit of take a little bit of a different role. And he's also focused on trying to be a leader, Yep. He's an alternate captain right now with certain definite aspirations, I believe, to be a captain. So, it's one of those things where he's got to grin and bear it and put on that face of a leader, keep that face on, because that is, I think that's where he wants to be. So, also let me make another point. He doesn't have the guy who he was paired with last season, Alex Goligoski, is now gone. Yeah. And those two together they played off well with each other. They were a great pairing. Alex's game really helped Chychrun with his offensive game. He was kind of a mentor to him. And also it just, their styles just fed into each other to help Jakob Chychrun produce on offense. So he's gone. He's with Minnesota. They're coming into tomorrow night. And, there's just a lot of different factors all rolled into one here.
Before we get right into the management side of things, and this is kind of going to play right into it, there have been some rumors about maybe moving Chychrun. Is that a straight up no, or is it maybe if the package is right? Jose?
Yeah, you'd have to get the world from another team. I mean, this guy is 23. His upside is still incredible. He's like an Adonis out there on the ice. He's big, athletic. He does everything you want. He's everything you want in an offensive defenseman. He has those leadership qualities. So you don't want to, you're not selling low. You're not giving up. You're having to give up the farm if you're another team trying to get Chychrun. I see him as the guy that they sort of build around because he's still young. And then you bring in all these prospects. They come up through the system. And when they get to the NHL level, there's Jakob Chychrun to help lead them into the next next era of Coyotes hockey.
That's pure poetry, honestly, because there are a lot of people that have tabbed him, obviously, and Jose alluded to it before, as the next captain of this team. So you got to think it's going to take a king's ransom and then to even consider moving him. He's a big part of the future.
With the trade in the offseason and even some of the rumors, we've talked a little bit about it, but with GM Bill Armstrong, it obviously looks like he's tanking for this summer. Does it mean it's like a full rebuild right now then?
Yeah, I think I saw the term over the summer that made me kind of chuckle, scorched earth. It is a rebuild for all rebuilds because they've just completely torn it down. And you got to look at it too, what he inherited. And he inherited a team in disarray. There's a lot of bad press going out there. There's a lot of sanctions that are happening where they're losing draft picks, and the previous regime with Chaika just did not depart on good terms. And he came into an extremely challenging situation. And I can't claim to have nearly the experience with him that Jose does, obviously, but man, if his attitude isn't top notch, and something that'll kind of live with me forever is on media day, when he was standing there before anybody else said anything, but before he even went up to address the media, he turned and he said, "My goal, I can't wait to have this like standing room only in here. I want this standing room only some year." Because, you could count the amount of people there and on two hands tops. So that stood with me. And again, there's really only one way to go about it. They are full speed ahead on the rebuild. And I've been impressed with what I've seen him do to this point.
I mean, if you think about it, like what real pressure is there on Bill Armstrong? I mean, it's been made very clear that this is a rebuild. Mm-hmm. It's been made very clear that, the players that are here now, most of them are not the future. Yeah. So it's definitive. It's been already put out there. It's already admitted to by the club. We're rebuilding. We're starting from scratch. He's gotten the full support of, the president and CEO, the owner. So, and the attitude is good, like Patrick was saying. I mean, he's a guy who wants, as a GM, it's his second year. He's out to make his mark. He has to make his imprint on this team and say, this is what I did with the Arizona Coyotes when I got my first general manager job. This is the mark that I had and the things that I did to change this franchise around. And if it's successful, hockey fans in this area are strong forever, right? So
yep,
you come into it with really nothing to lose.
And the bar is not that high. Let's be honest. There's only one banner that hangs, and it's not a championship banner. The bar is not terribly high, and I mean no disrespect. It's just kind of the truth.
Yeah. All right. Well, we all know what the term Phoenix stands for, so you hope, scorched earth and everything that it kind of comes into full fruition there. So two things I want to touch then. One, I'm just thinking of, I know they're kind of going back with the old school logo and everything. Maybe it's time for a brand new Phoenix to grow from the ashes. As well, Jose, what is the current outlook on the whole new arena thing?
Just was going to talk about that. I think, you have a plot of land on the east side of the valley, on the east side of town, Tempe, prime real estate over there. Anything basically on the east side of the city is prime, because you have Tempe, Scottsdale over there, all of the sort of higher economic level suburbs of Phoenix. So the fan base has basically been out there, largely out in that part of town for years upon years, from maybe the beginning. They actually tried a long time ago to get an arena built in Scottsdale. It didn't happen, and then they got a sweeter deal in Glendale and moved west. But the plan is, at least they were the only entity to submit a bid for a plot of land along the Rio Salado and Tempe, and build their spot there. They want it to look. They talk about it looking a lot like the Milwaukee Bucks arena, with the plaza out there in the front, and the ability for the fans to congregate and watch a big screen. Maybe have a viewing party of a playoff game someday. I think that's the vision. So it's going to take time, though. It's going to take several years. I mean, they haven't even on ground. They're not even there yet. There's still some paperwork and some loopholes to get through. But, as in terms of a rebuild in conjunction with the building of a new arena, the future looks bright if you really believe in it.
We've mentioned those great prospects that they have in Edmonton already. On the current roster, Lawson Krause looks pretty good. How is his game developing, Patrick?
He's having a pretty decent bounce back year to this point, which is funny to say on a team that isn't that good. But I've been impressed with what I've seen. He's kind of followed suit with the other team leaders. You see him constantly, he's not pressing, but he's the effort's always there. He's out there, he's chippy, and it's starting to pay off. And in what is obviously a very difficult season, I thought Lawson Crouse has really stepped up early on. And I do have to say that I thought it was super cool when they came back against Seattle and scored 13 seconds after the Kraken tied it up with a minute left, making it look like here we go again. And Crouse 13 seconds later takes a feed and buries it. And he was jumping up and down on the ice like a little boy. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. He was so excited. He jumped right into the arms. I forget who his teammate was that was there. The place was going crazy. It was a cool atmosphere. And I think it speaks volumes to what they're trying to accomplish as a team this year. They know what they're facing. They know what they're up against, but they're still going out and doing it. And Crouse so far is one to lead the way.
Oh man, I paid attention to that game. I remember the beginning was a little crazy and the ending was crazy,
man.
and I tweeted Jose about it. I was like, "What is it like? It's just gonna? Is that how it's gonna end?" But that's the best. That's the best kind of hockey you want, is when it's crazy at the beginning, crazy at the end, and it's gonna be a crazy season. Again, you can find him on Twitter at @PBrownHockey for Patrick, and for Jose at Romero Jose M. It was great having you guys on.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Thanks,
so
Peter.
much.
Thanks to all my guests today. It was great to see an NHLPA perspective on the Eichel artificial disc replacement surgery. Also, for both the Sabres and the Coyotes fan bases, the term Phoenix is about rising from the ashes with a renewed youth to live through another cycle. Stay strong, my friends. If you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter at @PBojaranov or the entire team at Jablam Sports. You can use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. If you want to also contact us on our website, go to jablamsports.com/contact. Also, you can find all our info for all our guests and our podcasts, for even game notes for each episode, including this one. You'll get guests' info and links to all the things we mentioned on this show. We even have weekly content articles. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Jablam Sports Hockey is your one-stop weekly shop for every expert analysis on every single team. We are a fun community bringing everyone together. Follow us on Facebook. Thank you, everyone. And to every one of our listeners, we're giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.